The indictment charging former U.S. President Donald Trump with mishandling classified documents has been unsealed. It's the first official confirmation from the Justice Department of a criminal case against Trump, who faces 37 criminal charges. He's alleged to have ignored the department's demands to return documents and even directed advisors to hide some of them. It's the first time a former president has been prosecuted for federal crimes. Trump could face 10 years in prison if found guilty. And we can now get the latest from our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Michaela Kufner. Michaela, 37 counts, quite a bombshell. Tell us more.
Yes, this is the document everybody had been waiting for, where everybody was speculating whether it would come out before Donald Trump has to appear before court on Tuesday. There's talks of hundreds of documents in there. And then, of course, the question is, how bad can this be? Well, let me just read one short excerpt. This included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the U.S. and its allies, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. So not just to anybody with a military mind, this is an absolute nightmare in terms of potential leaks and the damage that could be done to U.S. defense and its allies. That's the allegation that Donald Trump has, and that's why there are so many counts of willful retention of national defense information, which does carry a long prison sentence if he was to be found guilty by that special jury in Florida. Now, we are due to hear from the special counsel, Jack Smith. He formerly worked in The Hague at the War Crimes Tribunal there, so he's well accustomed to very difficult proceedings involving very powerful, mostly men and women. And this is somebody who doesn't like to speak at all publicly on proceedings, but it appears that we've seen a lot of information or a lot of narrative coming from the Republican camp, particularly Donald Trump himself, who's speaking of open legal warfare against him, that the Department of Justice appears to have chosen not to remain silent on these very proceedings that carry a hefty potential prison sentence for Donald Trump and could actually stop him in his tracks in his bid to once again secure the Republican nomination to run for president again in 2024.
Yeah, this is the most serious legal trouble he has faced so far, and that's saying a lot because he's in a lot of legal trouble. And how dangerous is this for him?
Well, this can pan out two different ways. What usually happens when he gets accused of anything is that he starts to fundraise, and rather successfully. There's estimates that about a third of Republicans back him no matter what. They believe in the so-called deep state. That's something Donald Trump himself is referring to as well. So that could mean that people who just believe in Donald Trump as an individual will back him no matter what and actually spend more money to back his latest campaign. On the other hand, these proceedings, despite the fact that they will draw out for at least months, if not longer, way towards those elections, they could start sparking doubts in the Republican camp. But it doesn't look like that at all right now. Even those people who are running against him for the Republican nomination, like Mike Pence, who keeps stressing that he continues to uphold the Constitution, which he did when he certified the results for Joe Biden, even they are criticizing these proceedings as actually being a campaign against Donald Trump. So it could go either way.
Knowing him, he'll be able to spin this in his favor. He's already talked about how they're weaponizing him and these allegations going into the race that is probably going to pin him against Joe Biden, the sitting president, to whom the DOJ responds. And Joe Biden has been quite silent on this, hasn't he?
Well, he would be, because what he wants to stress is that there's a separation of powers and that there is no interference from the White House, which, of course, Donald Trump himself is alleging. For Donald Trump, there's only one way out of it, and that's deeper into this. That's also the route he's already taken. We're seeing that from the statement that just came out from him, where he is once again alleging all-out weaponization, a war against him through the U.S. judiciary system. But what we're also seeing is one of his closest aides also indicted in this document, and several of his attorneys were called in as witnesses, and several appeared to have spoken and testified before this special grand jury that is sitting in Florida. So we've also seen two lawyers from his legal team depart. They resigned, citing that now that the proceedings have surprisingly shifted to Florida,
I have to interrupt you there because we just saw Special Counsel Jack Smith take the stage. Let's listen into what he has to say about the prosecution.
This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District. And I invite everyone to read it in full, to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical for the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk. Adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle of the Department of Justice, and our nation's commitment to the rule of law sets an example for the world. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less. The prosecutors in my office are among the most talented and experienced in the Department of Justice. They have investigated this case hewing to the highest ethical standards, and they will continue to do so as this case proceeds. It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused. We very much look forward to presenting our case to a jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida. In conclusion, I would like to thank the dedicated public servants of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom my office is conducting this investigation and who work tirelessly every day upholding the rule of law in our country. I'm deeply proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you very much.
Why Florida, sir? Why did you decide to bring the case in Florida?
And we can speak to Michaela Kufner, who has also been listening to the statement by U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith. Michaela, it seemed like he was preemptively protecting his team there, but also insisting on something that I found was very, very important. He insisted on the presumption of innocence of the defendant. What was your takeaway?
Well, this is a man who wants to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. And it can be already seen as a pretty smart move that he shifted this or allowed this to go to Florida, which is where most of these potential crimes were actually committed. That's where those boxes were stored. That is not something anyone would otherwise strive for, because it will go towards a jury, and there are more Republicans in Florida. It's more of a Republican-leaning state, so it would be perceived to be more friendly towards Donald Trump. But what he wants to do is he wants to make this absolutely watertight. And when you look at this indictment, it's rather lengthy, it's very detailed. In an indictment, you only allege what you can prove 99 point something %. They must be very certain that they can prove this, that they also have the witnesses they can draw on, the witness testimony, also from within the close circles of Donald Trump. And this is a problem he is facing, that his close allies, former attorneys, have spoken to the special counsel in very detail. One of them has actually made voice recordings throughout working for him. That seems to have been a measure of self-protection, and probably also somebody already having an idea that they might find themselves in a tough spot for having defended Donald Trump in the past and still continuing to do so. So it would be very interesting to see how this pans out. And Jack Smith, who's, he's not publicly well known at all. This is actually the first time I've seen video image of him. It was very difficult to even see photographs of them. So he now suddenly has become a public figure, but he wants to keep this out of the public debate and narrative as much as he possibly can.
As DW correspondent Michaela Küfner on this historic day in the United States, once again headed into uncharted territory. Thank you so much.